Welcome back. We're back working on another quarter horse mare. She's got front shoes and sliders on, and she's been a little bit off up front. I'm not sure that it's something hoof related necessarily, but we're going to make sure today that as we're going through working on her that we put some hoof testers on her just to double check for some sole sensitivity. And yeah, so we're just going to start by cleaning the feet out. We're going to pop the clinches, which is basically just unfolding that end of the nail that kind of helps hold the shoe on. So here I'm using a nylon hammer. I kind of prefer these to a traditional driving hammer for popping clinches because it's not as shrill of a noise and it's a little bit less concussive. Can I help you, honeybee? Rather you gotta stop wearing perfume. All the bees are... So we pull the shoes and start cleaning up that dead sole, looking for the landmarks in the feet that give us an idea of where we need to map the foot and trim to. These may look like medieval torture devices, but I assure you it's not what they're used for. We're simply testing for sensitivity in the sole that might indicate that there's an issue internally or that she might have thin soles and is sensitive to pressure on the bottom of her foot. I ended up relaying the information to the owner that this horse did not have any sensitivity or positive reaction to us putting the hoof testers on her. Because she didn't show any signs of sensitivity to the hoof testers, I did have the conversation with the owner that it would be wise to get the horse double checked by a veterinarian or maybe get a lameness evaluation done on her. Some of these high performers really need a lot of maintenance to keep them going, depending on how heavy their workload is and if they might have any pre-existing lameness issues. Maintenance on a horse could be something as simple as bodywork, acupuncture, chiropractic, but some horses that have a little bit heavier workload or maybe have some osteoarthritis benefit from things like joint injections. But of course, I always leave that up to the professionals in the veterinary field. As we're moving right along, I'm mapping the foot around the center of rotation just to double check where I want that point of breakover to be. I like the amount of solar concavity this horse has developed, which means she's not super flat-footed anymore. The quality of her foot has improved over the last 4 cycles, and I can also manipulate where she breaks over by my shoe placement if I can't always get my trim safely back to where I want it to be. So as I move to work on her hind feet, it never fails, and I have some pretty silly videos of it, but every time you lift a hind leg on one of these horses, it seems that it just kind of helps them relieve themselves of a little bit of gas. We did end up pulling both sliders and leaving her barefoot behind for a couple of cycles, which I think will benefit her feet in the long run, and also because she's getting a bit of a break because of the fact that she's a little uncomfortable up front. Oh God. So here we've cleaned up the foot enough to where I can find my landmarks and get that mapped around the center of rotation. And again, this is not necessarily always going to be your where to trim line. This is where if you can safely trim it and still leave the horse enough depth, then you can trim to that line. However, if you cannot, you can always either put a grind in the toe of your shoe, you can set the shoe back to kind of help put that point of breakover where that line is. This foot in particular doesn't have a ton of depth at the toe, so you can see me here kind of trim from the heel to the toe quarter flat, and then I'll double check my parameters, my landmarks, and then go back and bring the toe back, but not necessarily take much vertical height. So now I'm just trying to bring the hoof wall in to where it's uniform hoof wall thickness around the perimeter. This will help me create a guideline of where I need to clean the hoof wall up when I pull it forward and put it on the stand. You want to stretch? Yep. Hi. So at this point, we have trimmed both the front feet. I'm getting ready to nail a shoe on the front. We have not trimmed the hinds, but we did pull her shoes off. My ankle pop. I like this brand and style of shoe in particular because it comes with a natural bevel or roll around the toe, which mimics what the horse's foot would be if we were to trim it and leave it barefoot. She would have a nice roll from toe quarter to toe quarter. There would be no sharp edges on the ground surface. I always tack my shoes on with 2 nails at first, set the foot down, and make sure I like my shoe placement and make sure that it fits properly around the foot. Nope, too low. Paige, you're gassy this morning. So same thing, but on the opposite front foot. And from this angle, when I move my hand, you can kind of see where that bevel of the shoe lines up with her hoof wall. So we brought the toe back on the trim, and then we're setting the shoe back just a hair to kind of put that point of break over where she needs it to be. Ow. Don't do that. Why is it always on? There's a video where I smacked myself. All right, so shoes are nailed on, and this is the process of what we call to finish a foot, which means we cut off that excess bit of nail, we tidy it up, and we fold it over and make sure everything is smooth and flat, so when people like the owner go to pick up the foot to clean it, there's not little pieces of metal sticking out that they can cut themselves on. You like my conditioner, Paige? So as we move to the back feet, we're just going to trim these to leave them barefoot, which I'm really happy about because historically, when I very first got to work on this horse, she had pretty severely run forward toes, which had caused her heels to crush quite a bit. And I find that in the back feet most of the time, they do a better job at rehabbing those if they're barefoot, and we just kind of map them, trim them to be balanced, and then leave them alone for a little bit.
A little bit of a false apex there, huh?
It's because her foot's so distorted. You can see I'm having a trimmer in kind of an awkward position, but it's kind of the chicken or egg thing. Whether their angles are poor in their hind feet causes sore back issues, or the other way around. It's definitely not easy for me to work on her in such a compromised position. It's hard on me, but it's also hard on her because she is pretty stiff. The structural integrity of your heels, not great.
Or the lack of?
Well, it's just like stuff like this, like it's chronically distorted, and then we put a shoe on top of it. You can see how the horn tubules are run forward this way. So she should be bearing weight back, like way back here, but it's up here on both sides. Hang on. That's why I asked if we could leave her a cycle or two without hind shoes. Because in the hind feet, typically they do a little bit better rehabbing themselves once you take the shoes off for a second. Page. Because it's like her frog's set way back behind her heels. Right? It's back here. She's bearing weight up here.
From having a shoe on, huh?
Well, she had chronic distortion to begin with. And then leaving a shoe on it, it's like she wasn't allowed to fix it herself, really. Hang on. So when you apply a shoe, like for instance, this horse had sliders on because of the job that she was doing, you only have weight bearing on the perimeter hoof wall. So a lot of the foot, especially the back half of the foot, doesn't get used, so sometimes it atrophies, which can cause crushed heels. But mostly her crushed heels were due to chronic imbalances in her trimming and shoeing. Unfortunately, that's all the video we got, but she did end up getting a nice balance trim.